Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Cox. I'm a member of the Netcapital team. Let's allow one moment for everybody to settle in. Thank you. While we're settling in, feel free to use the Q&A or the chat feature to share where you're calling in from. I always love seeing folks come from all over the world to learn about these entrepreneurs and what their offerings are. So if you want to jump into the chat feature or to the Q&A feature, let us know where you're calling in from today on this virtual world. I'm coming from just south of Los Angeles in Orange County, California. Jack, where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from cloudy Columbus, Ohio.
Cloudy Columbus, Ohio. And Robert, how about you? Where are you calling from today?
I'm in Charlotte area.
Oh, beautiful. Awesome. You want to bring us home, Atakan? Where are you calling from today?
Las Vegas, Nevada. We're finally getting some sunshine here today. So we had clouds earlier.
Are you excited for Formula One coming to Vegas?
Absolutely, yes. So this is going to be, after I think a long hiatus, the first one. People are excited. So this is becoming much more of a sports oriented city.
Yeah. So when folks make their way to Vegas for F1, you have to bug Atakan. No, I'm kidding. Let's allow one last moment. People are still trickling in. I just continue to see the attendees growing. So let's give it just a little bit more time and then we'll start digging in. And I'm going to start us off with some housekeeping. So we'll just give one more moment. Please continue to participate in the Q&A and the chat. Clearwater, Florida. Oh, cool. Got some Floridians on the line. Welcome, welcome. Oh, sorry. Actually, I need to change my name. I'm sorry. I still only have Netcapital team here. Let me update that for a quick moment. Look at that. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for everybody joining us here today. And thank you so much for our panelists. We're super excited to be having our March demo day with 3 very exciting entrepreneurs and companies. As always, these companies are actively raising capital on the Netcapital platform. So we're so happy to have them here, share about what they're building, and really kind of explain the investment opportunity. As I mentioned, I'm Eric Cox. I'm a member of the Netcapital team. We're going to have 3 presenters today, each of which will spend about 15 minutes presenting their company, and we're going to allow an opportunity for Q&A, of course. Since we do want to have questions and answer time, please do use the Q&A feature built into Zoom. I know there's also chat functionality, but the Q&A feature makes it so much easier to track the questions as they come in and answer as many of them as possible. And please do ask your questions. We want to keep this as interactive as possible. This is why we're here. So please do get involved. Oh, Chicago, Illinois in the house. My parents grew up in Chicago. Love seeing Chicago represented. Great St. Patrick's Day celebration. I hope the river is still green. So that was a couple quick housekeeping items. Oh, also this is being recorded. I will go ahead and share the link to that. It's going to be on the Netcapital YouTube account. And I imagine these folks might share that as well on their social media. But I'll make sure to share the link to this recording as well in case you miss anything or you want to share that with folks who are unable to attend. I think that is all the housekeeping that I have so far. We're going to go in the order. Northridge, California. That's right here. I have some family that went to Cal State Northridge. Okay, last little bit. Continue to add where you're calling from. No problem there. Indiana, love that. Okay, so we're going to go in order that was presented in the email. So it'll be Micro MGX starting us off. We'll have Cure Lab Vet after that, and then we'll have AccuShoot bringing us home. And again, we do want to keep this interactive, so please do use the Q&A feature built in to Zoom. So with all that being said, we're going to start off with Micro MGX. Jack, do you want to come on in? Jack Klober, you want to come on in and get us started?
Hello, everyone. Really glad you could join us today. I'm trying to get this into show mode here for us. Great. My name is Jack Klober. I'm the CEO of MicroMGX. And I thought I'd kick this off by just saying a little bit about the company because not all of you are familiar with MicroMGX. Although I'm glad to see that we have quite a few investors and interested people with MicroMGX already online as well. So the picture I'm showing you here on the left is something called horseweed. I don't know if you knew that, but farmers have a terrible time with horseweed, and so they spray before they plant. In the middle picture, you see them actually spraying during the growing season, and they can do that because of some special genetics and all with the crops they're spraying on. But this is to kill the weeds as well. And still, on the right-hand side, you see a field. Too often we see this where a field is completely infested with this horseweed again. Why is that? Because our current herbicides just can't handle it because of something called herbicide resistance. You probably see that in some of the dandelions around your house, right? They just don't die. So this herbicide resistance is because we haven't had a new mechanism of action herbicide in 35 years. Incredible lack of innovation. Weeds are still a huge problem. They're responsible for 30% of all crop losses around the world. Because of that, look at this statistic. The yield loss to weeds could feed 1 billion people a year. So folks, we're talking about a very large problem that's getting worse because herbicide resistance doesn't get any better until you get new mechanisms of action. So our mission is to deliver nature solution to the world's farmers. And you guessed it, we found something that's a new mechanism of action, herbicide, that's going to help the farmers. So let's talk about that. This is a natural herbicide. By natural, I mean it's grown by a bacteria. We didn't invent this someplace. We found it in a bacteria that actually causes onion center rot, has a new mechanism of action. And I'm just showing you one picture here where we sprayed horseweed. This is little horseweed with Roundup, and we sprayed it with our new herbicide. And you can see the results. The horseweed doesn't seem to be bothered at all by Roundup, but is certainly taken care of pretty well by MGX1001, which is the name of our product. You see our licensing down below. We're really in an exciting time right now where we're licensing in 35 different countries around the world as we speak. So that's really exciting. What I'd like to do is tell you a little bit that it's such a huge market that we're very excited about. This is a $34 billion market around the world just for herbicides. It's mainly generic. So if we get an on-patent herbicide that's more effective, you can imagine what's going to happen. Actually, right now, the top 2 herbicides are bringing in over $2 billion a year, each of them. And they're all basically off patent. So this is pretty exciting. Now, our business model is to use a classic licensing business model. Those of you that aren't familiar with that, you basically license it out to a large organization like a Bayer or a Syngenta or a Corteva or one of those large ag companies, and they pay an upfront fee for the ability to develop it and then market it. Along the way, we would receive milestone payments, and then finally we would be receiving royalty payments. We've already raised about $700,000 from an angel investor. Thank you, Raj, and for some grants, SBIR grants, and also an accelerator that just got out of where we raised $100,000. What's really exciting here is we have 3 of the top 10 global ag companies in the world who have contracted with us to test our product. One of them has already, after the testing, has already given us an offer to collaborate with us. The other 2 are still testing. We're waiting. We think in May, our fingers are crossed, we're going to have 3 really good offers. We can only go with one because they all demand exclusivity. Just last point here, we just discovered that we've tested and we found a tolerance gene that allows you to spray the crop and still kill weeds and not the crop. So that's pretty exciting. That actually doubles the value of a herbicide when you can find a tolerance gene. So pretty amazing stuff going on. Here's our key leadership team. We have some other folks that I can talk about later, but our key leadership team on the left there is Bill Metcalf. He's actually the inventor of this MGX1001 and an expert in genomics and genome binding. On the right is Tony Gehring, Dr. Gehring, who's our CSO, Chief Scientific Officer, has been here since the start. He was employee #1 back in 2017. And I myself, Jack Clover, I have experience in the Army, leading small teams, but also with Johnson & Johnson and with Syngenta leading R&D projects in those 2 areas. And my PhD is from Georgia Tech. Last but not least, there's a bonus here. This is a big bonus. We have a discovery platform that allow us to follow on MGX1001 with other important natural chemicals. So we can follow on. This isn't a one-hit wonder. We won't go into too much more, but with genomics and metabolomics, we now have efficiently, 100 times more efficiently, can find natural products. All right, so let's just review the technical updates. Just recently, we found the resistance gene. We scaled up our fermentation because remember, we get it from a bacteria. So we have to scale up that fermentation just like with beer. We're now at 240 liters now, which is a big step up. We now have the characterization of the biosynthetic pathway, which means we can probably synthesize it, which we're working on now. And finally, we have a really easy purification method now, making it a lot cheaper and faster to purify once we have that 240 liters fermented. So we're pretty excited about that. And we're looking for people like you and investors to partner with us and with nature to defeat these weeds and help our farmers feed more people. So that was my quick introduction into our company right now. And we're really glad that we have everyone online today to ask some questions and to find out. I've already talked a little bit about the technical updates. I would like to say just a little bit about some of the recognition we're getting from outside of the company. So back in, after we had our valuation and after we came online with Netcapital and we started the crowdfunding, after that, we had a selection to be the top 5 of the Hudson Alpha out of 580 companies to be part of their accelerator where they help you build as a company. And that came along with a $100,000 investment in us. It's called a convertible note. So after that, we also got accepted and were identified as finalists in the Hello Tomorrow competitions, an annual competition in Paris, France. And they had about 4,500 companies apply to that. And we were selected as one of the finalists for that as well. I just came back from Paris last week. And that was a real trip. That was great. And then we just got, last week, we were accepted into the accelerator for Plug and Play, which is one of the most active VCs in the world. And they're going to help us with strategy, meeting VCs for our fundraising and also develop and help us find the right people and the right talent to move forward. So we're really excited about all these different ways that we've been recognized in the last 9 months. And I'd like to open up now to anyone with questions. You've probably read on NetCap on their site there about our company, but there may be some things that are confusing to you, and I'd love to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that, Jack. And thank you so much for your service as an Army veteran. We do appreciate
You're welcome.
that.
Yeah. The 23 years went by fast.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. And I'd also like to congratulate you. Plug and Play is a world-class institution for those who are unfamiliar. We do have some questions coming in, so I'd like to start addressing these. Somebody asked, what does mechanism mean when you say there's a new mechanism? And can we kind of dig into that kind of at the highest level, 30,000 feet, and maybe get a little bit more granular as well?
Sure. So at a high level, mechanism just means how does it defeat that weed? So there are basically 14, depending on how you categorize it, 14 categories of mechanisms, ways of defeating a weed. Is it through the leaf? Is it through the plant? Is it before it even germinates? And then once it's up there in a leaf, does it go through the whole plant down to the roots? Does it kill the leaf itself? Does it burn it? Does it stop it from performing photosynthesis? There's all different types of mechanisms. And so there are about 14 to 18 mechanisms out there that are being used, but we haven't found a broad spectrum new mechanism for, like I said, 30 years. What this one actually uses a new mechanism of action, which we're determining now. We can determine that it's new because you have a screening process to determine that it's not this mechanism or that mechanism. So it's none of those. So we know it's new. We're still in the process of finding exactly how it works.
Super exciting, cutting edge, and we're learning about this together. More questions, and then I think we're going to start to transition over to the next panelists. But please elaborate on the resistance gene, which is super critical and exciting, and how this is utilized / observed. Good question.
Okay, so resistance gene, which allows a plant to resist being defeated by our MGX1001. So our herbicide kills plants, right? It's a herbicide. So to avoid being killed by this herbicide, we have found now a gene. So we tested a lot of different plants and which ones weren't killed, which ones were killed by our herbicide to find out. And then from the ones that weren't killed, that we can start digging into the DNA. And we've actually were able to knock out different gene clusters. And we found the gene cluster that's actually the gene that's responsible for that tolerance, for that resistance. Now, Bill Metcalf is online as well. Bill, do you want to add to that comment?
I think I see Bill. There we go. There's Bill right there. I'm going to move him. I'm sorry. I left you in the attendees. Let's go ahead and promote you to a panelist. Come on in here, Bill.
Bill is our chairman, as I showed the picture a couple of minutes ago. Bill, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, Bill, you are officially a panelist. Go ahead and unmute. There you go. You are on mute though, Bill.
All right, my apologies about the mute. Yes, so essentially this is a gene that you can clone into a plant that makes the plant no longer sensitive to the herbicide. So it metabolizes the herbicide in a way that it's no longer toxic to the plant. It's not exactly the same, but it's analogous. You probably have heard of Roundup Ready soybeans or Liberty Link corn. It's an analogous approach to make the plants insensitive to that particular herbicide.
Thank you so much for joining.
Allows us then to spray all year long if we want.
Got it. That's really important. And I'm going to sneak in one last question, and then we're going to have to switch over to the next panels here. You mentioned SBIR. Are you still engaged in a phase? And also you said exclusivity on contracts post-testing. Does that mean that there's an impact on total addressable market? So two different questions. The first one being, are you still going through the SBIR process?
Yeah. So a quick question. The SBIR kicked us off in 2017. We're not currently in an SBIR phase. The second question is about exclusivity. The exclusivity pertains to who we collaborate with, but the market is the same. It's the farmers. The market is the farmers, but we're going to get to the farmers through one of these large agriculture companies that has the distribution that we need. So it does not at all diminish the market. It only restricts us to which collaborator we work with.
Perfect. Thank you so much for answering that, Jack. And thank you for joining us, Bill. I added a link to that offering. Again, that was MicroMGX and the team over there. And I added a link into chat. You can go directly to netcapital.com and search MicroMGX, or you can go directly to netcapital.com/companies/MicroMGX Inc. So go ahead and hit the link in the chat or visit the offering page to learn more. And if you're so inclined, you can invest. So thank you so much, Jack and Bill. Continuing along here, we're going to welcome Robert Devlin to the stage here, speaking about Cure Lab Veterinary. So if you want to come off mute, Robert, and you can go ahead and share your screen if you would like to. And while Robert gets set up, I'm going to go ahead and add a link to that into the chat as well. So here is the link for Cure Lab. And Robert, you're still on mute, but your screen looks good to go.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out and listening to us and giving us all those good questions. The company I'm working with as president is Cure Lab Veterinary. Our goal is to help pets live longer lives. Our management team, our founder is a biotech engineer and also a big advisor and researcher in immunology, Alexander Snyder. I'm a veterinarian by training. I went to Kansas State University. I also got an MBA, and I practiced for about 13 years. So I know what veterinarians need. And now I'm on the other side of the fence, and I work for veterinary industry for the last 20 years. Jason Payne is our CFO, and he helps us tremendously with all the financials. Vlad Gabai is our PhD of R&D, and he has, as you can see, over 80 papers and 4,000 references. So we got a brain trust of people, not necessarily me, but the others that do a great job for us in our product. So what is our product? Our product is a DNA plasmid. It is a product that we take is down here in this picture. This little DNA molecule that we like, this P62 plasmid, we insert it in this backbone, and we can inject it into the dogs, and then this DNA gets replicated, and it makes more P62 in the bone marrow, and then it goes out and affects the body. So what does this P62 gene do? Well, our initial focus is on breast cancer in dogs, both a problem in the United States and even more of a problem in Europe because they don't typically spay their dogs like we do here in the US. But it downregulates chronic inflammation. And by doing so, chronic inflammation is a precursor to cancer. So if we can downregulate this inflammation, we can ameliorate cancer. It changes the tumor microenvironment and actually the structure of it. So immune cells can go in and attack the tumor, where some of them can be protected without the P62. It also decreases how much these tumors metastasize to other parts of the body. We've noticed that for some cells, we can actually stop the metastasis. And it itself has anti-tumor immune response. So it increases how these T cells can penetrate the tumor and actually kill some of the breast cancer cells. And it inhibits the suppression of those tumor cells to the P62. So it does on both sides of the coin there. It works on its own, but what we've also found, it can be complementary to conventional anti-cancer therapy. So it can be a great adjunct. We can reduce the size of these tumors to make them resectable. They can also use our product with traditional chemotherapy to completely eliminate, or again, reduce it to the point where it can be resected. But breast cancer is our first foray into with this product. We know that there's likely other areas because of the mechanism of action. Again, we talk about mechanism of action, all those activities that this product does. So there's a large group of dogs that has inflammatory bowel disease. Osteoarthritis is a huge issue for dogs and cats. Triad disease in cats, chronic inflammatory skin infections, or even renal disease are large areas we're looking at. We know for a fact that we can stop some of the metastasis with the product in some of our initial research, also for melanoma. So at this juncture, we're getting ready to go through the USDA CVB process. We have to present our product to the USDA and go through the approval process, show the safety. We've done a lot of this background work, but now we've got to go show our data to the USDA for licensure. This licensure period usually, because we're the USDA CVB is more of a analogous to a vaccine versus FDA, which is a drug. Our approval process is much shorter. Instead of sometimes 5 to 10 years, we're in the 2 to 3 year process for approval. The biggest thing that we look at in this is really caring for animals. I mean, we've raised $2.5 million already. We need to get to around 5 million to really get through the breast cancer and also start to move down the road of other indications. But really, it's about giving back to the animals. 90% of pet owners consider their pet family. There's been studies that show not only do our pets do we give to pets, but they give back to us by decreasing stress, lowering blood pressure, keeping people, I mean, especially we saw it during COVID, how many pets were adopted, alleviating depression. And so we want to support both the pets by eliminating this cancer and osteoarthritis, their pain, and also in nurturing and enhancing that relationship they have to pet owners. And with that, I'll take any questions you guys have.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Robert. I am one of those folks that got a pandemic puppy. He actually turns 3 today. That's how long this has been going on. So happy birthday, Atlas. And he's certainly family, no question about that. For those who are unfamiliar, what is the incidence? So what's the instance of cancer in? I mean, my dog's a golden retriever. I know larger breeds tend to have more issues with this, but how common or how prevalent is breast cancer in dogs?
Breast cancer in dogs is over 10-year-olds, almost 50% of dogs get some form of cancer. Breast cancer obviously is less if they've been spayed or neutered, but in those unspayed, almost 50% could get breast cancer. So it's a big issue, and like I said, it's a big issue in the U.S. It's even bigger issue because this will be we're going through not only the USDA's CVB process, but we're going through the analogous process in the EU. So we can do a lot of this research simultaneously and then provide it to both areas, and or at least we know what we need to repeat for the EU. So it's much easier to do this way. And we've got this P62 plasmid is patented, I believe, in almost 35 countries around the world. So we've got a wide patent portfolio.
And no, that's fantastic. I'm excited to hear more about the international applications. Do you know how many like how many pets there are in the United States, or dogs and cats? Yeah, I'm just curious.
There's 79 million dogs and about the same number of cats. Now in Europe, it depends upon the country. Like France has more cats than dogs. Eastern Europe has a lot more dogs than cats. So, but it is lots of pets out there. The market is big. I mean, just cancer alone in the U.S. I mean, the average cost for a cancer can be $3 to $5 and sometimes up to $10,000 for a pet. And so, if we can, through our product, lower that cost, extend the lives, and also give back, even from a collaborative standpoint, even with the current chemotherapy, if we can make it more efficient, we can help those dogs reduce the tumors and hopefully extend their lives. Because again, it's that bond between that pet, their family, and how many people do you know that are really, when their pets have to cross that rainbow bridge, it's devastating to families.
Oh yeah, it's crushing. I am not even thinking about that because I will start to cry right now. I think for those who are unfamiliar, I remember the really interesting study about 5 years ago. For those who are like thinking 3,000 to 5,000 for cancer for a pet, I struggled to conceptualize that. I think it was 5 years ago, over $1 billion were spent on pet costumes for Halloween, pet costumes. So I just want to put that on the radar for folks. People are doing some interesting things when it comes to spending for their pets. I do have a couple more questions coming in. With this treatment, imagine this is through your vet, or is it at-home treatment? Is it a combination? Can you talk a little bit more about what that might look like?
It would be through the veterinarians. And so my background is working with veterinary industry. So again, we have several different ways we could do it. Like Jack, we could license a product out to Zoetis or to one of the big manufacturers, or we could have our own plant or some fashion thereof. We can do it several different ways once we have a licensure.
And like the U.S. medical system for humans, there's been a lot of consolidation in the veterinary space as well. Are you familiar with the folks, the kind of the larger players in the space that are buying up these veterinary practices? Are there any conversations with those ongoing?
Yes, we've already had discussions with them, and I'll be flying over to the Berlin Innovation Summit in May, where a lot of the key veterinary players are all going to be. And so, yes, we'll be bringing our portfolio there as well, because that's kind of the place where everybody's going to get together.
That's great. And massive corporations have seen value in this space as well. For those who are unfamiliar, Nestle has made a big step into veterinary, or not necessarily veterinary, but pet supplies, and Mars, candy maker.
Probably Mars owns more. They're very vertically integrated by owning the Banfield clinics. They own laboratories, and obviously they have all the pet food. But again, Zoetis, Elanco, there's a lot of companies that are well established, and there's some that are newer, like Decra, that are emerging and becoming bigger players on the marketplace. They're all looking for products that are adjacencies to their existing products or new areas, concentric diversification. And so we're getting a lot of interest from them in the product, especially, breast cancer is one. That's kind of our initial step, again, to put the tick in the box. but it's almost some of these other areas that they're getting even more excited about, because osteoarthritis in pets is a huge area.
Oh, well, God bless you on that work. More questions coming in here. How has the business been funded to date? What are some of the key backers? Congratulations on your success on raising capital up to this point. So I'll pause there. Key backers up to this point, if you could share some details.
Yeah, we had a German backer for over $100,000, and we had a gentleman from the U.S. that actually ran a plasmid manufacturing on the human side, because we also have a human side of our company, and this same P62 has shown great promise in human women with breast cancer. And so there's things going on the human side as well. But this gentleman decided, he saw the information and he wanted to jump in. So he provided $3 million to the Cure Lab family of companies, $2.5 million for the veterinary, and $500,000 for the human side.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that great question. And then can you dig into the business model post-regulatory approval? How does the company make money?
Well, the product itself, obviously the how we make the product, making a DNA plasmid, you can make it very efficiently. It's a very stable product, and so we can manufacture it probably for a cost of goods of around $100, and we can easily have a retail at the vet level to the vet at 500 and then they would mark it up whatever they want to for the pet owner. But it's a very, once you get the process down, it's a very efficient process, and it's very sustainable in that way. I think the biggest hurdle is just the production is not a problem. The distribution is not a problem, because I know all the veterinary distributors as well. It's really just getting through the USDA process. And we can get conditional licensure. A lot of the USDA really wants to help people like us get licensure or get to conditional licensure, because they want to help pets. That's their goal. And so once we have conditional licensure, we can already begin to make money. And conditional licensure lets us go out, sell the product, continue to gather data, confirmational data, and then usually the USA looks at it once more and says, yes, you're doing well, here's your full licensure, and then from there you're off and running.
Fantastic, fantastic. Last couple questions here, and then we'll get to our last presenter. What does the competitive landscape look like in this space, and how do you view yourself as differentiating yourself from the other players?
There's really no other, I think how we differentiate ourselves is there's really no other DNA plasmid kind of vaccine kind of product that's working in the way ours in mechanism of action. There have been some others that work in a similar way, but they weren't near, to date, they haven't been shown to be as effective. Most of the products that are out there are still the old chemotherapies, which can be quite harsh. And, the challenge with them is you're trying to give the dose and get the animal through the regimen without causing, just like in humans, without them being so sick that they have to get off it, which causes potential relapses. So if our product can come to market, I think we're going to have a lot more success in managing cancer in these pets. Sorry about my throat. Of course, today I have to have a little bit of a scratchy throat cold, so I apologize.
No need to. I think that is totally forgivable. Thanks for powering through. Last question is a little bit of a two-part one. Is there any intellectual property in the form of patents or otherwise? And then how do you view kind of your defensibility? Are there big moats? Is it super capital intensive in the beginning? Let's talk about IP and defensibility for a little bit.
Well, we do have IP, as I said, we have very strong IP portfolio. It is unique, and so we have very strong IP portfolio, and it's already established. We license our IP. We have a worldwide perpetual license from the human company. We have a sister company on the human side. So the veterinary side, as the separate company, we paid $250,000, but now we have worldwide perpetual license, the patents around the world.
Fantastic. I like to end on that note. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Robert. Thanks for powering through with the scratchy voice, but it sounded great. And thank you so much for the questions that came into that. As I mentioned earlier, I did add a link to their offering page into the chat that you go and select that, and you can go to the offering page, learn more. And if you're so inclined, you can invest, or you can go directly to netcapital.com and search Cure Lab, or you go directly to netcapital.com/companies/Cure Lab Veterinary. That's Cure Lab Veterinary. And again, that link is in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us, Robert. Thank you so much for that that
Thank
presentation.
you, and thank you everybody for your kind attention.
Absolutely, absolutely. Progressing to our final presenter for the day, last but not least for sure, we have Atakan Chetchinsoy with AccuShoot. And I know I kind of pushed that a little bit, but Atakan Chetchinsoy, why don't you come on in and tell us a little bit about what you're building with AccuShoot? And you are on mute.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Eric, and thanks for everyone's time and attention today. As we like to put it, the AccuShoot is the smartest path to marksmanship mastery. Our solution digitizes the marksmanship experience to help law-abiding citizens, law enforcement, and military personnel to improve and maintain their marksmanship skills. Traditionally, this has been a low-tech space, and a lot of folks who own guns and go to the shooting ranges, and I can cite some statistics as we go on, have traditionally been either not collecting any data about how good they're doing, whether they're progressing or their skills are perishing, or a subset of them have been collecting physical targets in the hopes that they can somehow analyze their shooting patterns later on. Some other group of shooters tend to have their own notebooks, a completely manual and physical way to do things. So we're here to change that, and we have already developed our solution in the last 2.5 years to bring it to its current state, which is about to publicly launch. And today, instead of using a slide deck, we thought it'd be better to show, not just tell. Therefore, I have invited my colleague and co-founder of AccuShoot, Paul Peterson, to this call so he can show you how our app works very briefly. Paul, can you share your video feed, please?
Yeah, I'm coming in.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. So I actually did, despite Atakan, I made a couple of slides just to give a little additional motivation because I felt it would really drive this home. As he mentioned, marksmanship is a perishable skill. All right. It has to be constantly refreshed through training. This is something that a lot of law enforcement agencies are learning. In particular, there was a study done with the Dallas Police Department in 2018. And you can read the study. It's actually fascinating. But the important part I've circled there is that 35% of their shots that the Dallas Police Department fired struck the suspect they were shooting at. The important takeaway from that statistic is 65% of those shots went somewhere else, right? Where did they go? That's a really big problem, okay? When you say it that way, you understand how big of a problem that is. And so if we have this perishable skill, it has to be constantly refreshed, even for our police departments, and we're already training them, then how can we improve the training they're receiving, and how can we track and record their progress to make sure that that training is actually being successful? And this is not just police departments. We actually have the market in mind of a standard edition with commodity hardware, which is direct to consumer. So as Atakan was mentioning, with people who are just going to the range on their own. We have a pro version, which we're working on for law enforcement, and a military version as well. And we also have formed an advisor team with people from all of these industries that are helping guide our decisions and how we approach these markets. And we've had the privilege of working with some really expert trainers in the field, including Clint Smith of Thunder Ranch. So the demo I'm going to show you is this. The first bit that we focused on was the core product is direct to consumer. So we have the iPhone app, which is what we're launching right now in March of 2023, and a little bit of our plan there where we're going to bring the Android app, and then we're working on the Pro and the military version shortly after. So this version just works with standard hardware. You can take your iPhone or your Android when we release it, a tripod or a scope mount, and one of the targets that we support. You can set it up at the range just like that. You point your camera, at the target and you run an app and you're off and running. And so actually I'm going to show you what that looks like. So on the right-hand side is my phone. And on the left-hand side is our website. And this is obviously, I'm not at a range right now. So this is just a target that I'm going to show you that I've hung on the wall of my garage and I won't shoot it. Okay, but this is what the app looks like currently. If you go into target scoring, we bring up a menu where you can see we've drawn a green box around it. What that means is the software recognizes this target and it's prepared to score the session. We have currently 3 types of drills that we support. One is called a group drill. The first one is called a slow drill. This is points that are based on how accurate you are on the target. Are you hitting the center? Are you hitting those red dots? We have a rapid drill, which is, can you just hit the target at all in a limited time? And we have a group drill, which is you shoot anywhere on the target. And the idea is consistency. Can you put all the impacts into the same place, irrespective of how the target is actually individually scored? We do have quite a few supported targets right now. It's pretty easy to add more. We're going to be adding them constantly. You can set rules for this drill, how many rounds you want to fight or how many rounds you want to require for this drill, the distance to the target, which impacts how we record the statistics, because we do a big statistical analysis on all this as well. In addition, you can, when you're configuring your drill, you can tell it what firearm you're using, and you can tell it what ammo you're using. And this is something that's unheard of in the shooting world right now. I know people that have targets in their garage and they keep track, but they don't always write down what ammo they were shooting that day or what firearm. And it turns out that your performance can change dramatically on which firearm you're using. Maybe it just doesn't fit your hand quite right. Maybe you're more likely to flinch because it's a larger caliber round. There's lots of things that can impact your effectiveness with a firearm, that if you're not tracking which firearm it was that you were shooting and the ammo, you don't know that data. So we can track all of that for you. And then you can start a live session. It counts down. It gives you an instruction to begin, and you proceed. And then we record that in the drill. So in the app, once it's recorded, we have it's in the profession, it's called DOPE. That stands for data on previous engagements. And so every session that you've recorded goes into here, and the statistical analysis is performed. So for example, here's one I did yesterday, actually at the range. And you can actually see that we recorded the 3 impacts on this target. We can do a group analysis where you can see maybe that's a little small, but there's a little green box drawn around the 3 shots in the center there. So we automatically tell you the size of that group and your accuracy on this target. And all of this is recorded in the website as well, which you can see on the left-hand side. This is the same DOPE. So you can go in here and you can see your history. As I mentioned before, we perform a statistical analysis on this. So you can actually get a sense of your performance. So you can score this across just yourself or with your friends. The social aspect is something that's never really been brought to firearms training before. So you can have friends on this tool. You can see if they're more accurate than you or if they're training more than you. You can see how you're doing with a specific weapon in your locker. You can see how you're doing with certain distances or over different periods of time. And we actually make a prediction of what your accuracy will be. And this is based on a statistical analysis. If you stop training, we can predict how much your accuracy will degrade over time. So this allows you to see, oh, I really need to get back out there. I really need to complete this certification again. So go ahead, Adakon, if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough time to show all the features. This is a pretty feature rich in terms of real-time scoring, performance predictions, and your digital locker that basically stores all the metadata about your guns and ammo and equipment and accessories. So our focus has been, again, digitizing the entire marksmanship experience, because obviously you cannot really manage what you don't measure. And as Paul said, the social component, we think, will add another layer of retention power and a bigger moat for us as we go forward. And we're excited to answer any questions you may have today regarding the product. As far as the market size and opportunity, some of the stats can be found on our campaign page, but very briefly, 32% of the population in the United States, some 81 million people, personally own guns. And nearly 400 million guns and rifles and firearms in the United States, 393, I believe is the exact number. 50% of the gun owners tend to go to shooting ranges, at various periods, irregularity, and 13% has said they go very often. 40% say from time to time. So there's definitely room for improvement in those stats as well, with better tools and better technology, we think. Besides the sort of the consumer opportunity, we talked a little bit about law enforcement and military personnel. There are 18,000 law enforcement organizations in the United States, and between 15 to 18,000 shooting ranges, indoor and outdoor. So this is a unpenetrated market. It's been more of a follower in terms of adopting software and data and technology, and we feel that AccuShoot can really make a difference in that sense. Thank you for your time again, and we're ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much to both of you for the presentation, and I do appreciate you showing the app real time. I think that was really helpful for those for the attendees to be able to see what that looks like. And I think regardless of how folks feel about guns, I think the idea of accuracy being a kind of a safety element, I think is critical. I think people can agree with that, which is really important. First question that came in: field training may involve some scenarios with movement, i.e. moving around locations while placing shots and or moving targets. Have you tested this solution indoors and outdoors? Are these the types of trainings? Are these types of training scenarios? So we can talk about that. Does this work on kind of more? I think they call them. I can't remember what they call those, but like the kind of the more involved training where things are moving and things. Is that possible?
Yeah. We have tested this outside. We've tested it indoors, indoor range. We tested it at nighttime with low light, not complete darkness, of course, because it is a visual based system. And the version that we're releasing right now is sort of that one on the left. It's just meant to be direct to consumer, the standard commodity hardware. And I didn't talk as much about the Pro, but that does lead into that. So the Pro version, one of the things that we're going to include there is something we call the gantry. And it is actually a system that you stand inside and has cameras that monitor you. And we do a video analysis using machine learning to look for mistakes that could be impacting your performance and also look for safety violations. So this becomes something that we can sell to police training or even to a private range where people can use it, and they'll say, you're leaving your finger on the trigger when you come off the target, and the system will be able to flag that in real time. And on the military side, that is where we're looking at systems that will allow us to have multiple targets arranged in a shooting stage where you move through a system of detection equipment. That's a little bit more involved. Obviously, that's not something that we anticipate direct to consumer market with commodity hardware right now. That's going to be more of a specific range or a specific military contract. We did have an SBIR contract that we launched the company with. So we know that there is a military interest in this system as well.
Thank you so much for that. And I think you kind of covered some of this question, but I still want to make sure that if there's anything you want to add, you have the opportunity to. But how does the mobile phone zoom long range to a target with sufficient clarity for the app to utilize the video feed?
So you can use the zoom that's directly built in. And I actually, that session I was showing you on my phone a moment ago, I had the target at 25 yards and I was just using the zoom on the phone. I just had my phone on a tripod. That's about the limit you can expect to just using. I have an iMax or an iPhone 12 Max Pro, so it's got a decent camera on it. Past 25 yards, you can just mount the camera or the phone directly onto a scope. They make various devices you can buy. They're not especially expensive. In fact, we were testing one yesterday, and with that, you can go out to several hundred yards very, very easily. And we actually have a component we're working on called the digital spotter, which basically operates like a spotter for you. So you have it set up on your target, maybe it's at 500 yards, you fire and you can look over at your phone and it'll show you exactly where that last impact just was. So you can automatically make corrections. Like you would have your buddy sitting there going, that was 1 mil left, but it's just right there on the app for you.
I think that's one of the things that's super fun about this, I think, is the idea that I think people just hold on to their best target, and there's just virtually there's no progress tracking. There's no real improvement metrics. It's just like, I had that one good shot, and trust me, that's representative. So I think it's gonna be a cool opportunity for folks to actually, especially when accuracy and shooting is part of your job. I'm really grateful to hear that there's an emphasis on that. More questions coming in, but I do want to make sure that if all of our folks are still here, if all of our panelists are still here, if we can make sure that we stick on, I'd like to allow a couple moments for even the folks who already presented to just do a closing remark, a little bit of a refresher on what you've done and what you covered earlier, just to kind of add a little baby synopsis at the end of this conversation. So we're gonna do a couple more minutes here, and then we'll end with closing remarks before we wrap up. But let's keep the conversation going here with AccuShoot. Are there other players in the space? Similar question, competitive landscape. And can you talk a little bit about your defensibility? What are some of the critical pieces that make you so different from them? Is it IP moat, other things like that?
Yeah, on the IP side, very quickly, I can mention that we have 5 provisional patents at this point filed, and we're going to be tracking the progress on that. And we're very much an IP-oriented company in general. As far as defensibility, the competitive landscape, there's nothing that exactly corresponds to what we're doing and sort of our more data and software-driven approach. There are a number of providers that basically are selling accessories that mount on your pistol or rifle, and they're useful if you're doing dry firing exercises, for example. While that's your friend, we don't believe it really matches the experience, the real life experience of being at the range and actual live fire exercises. And obviously, it also requires you to invest in that accessory, and the upfront cost can be much more significant than something like paying $15 a month for an iPhone app that you download from the App Store. So the other component where we feel we will have more of a defensible moat with is the data component. We believe that can be very sticky if you got all your dope and all your previous engagement data in one place. If you have friended certain people on the platform and are virtually doing live fire exercises and comparing your performances and getting a little bit more competitive. So all of that network effect is something that we're going to be also investing heavily in. And we also believe that once we have enough data, this would be very attractive for manufacturers of firearms to see how what they manufacture actually performs out in the real world. So there's going to be a number of opportunities, we believe, be it sponsorship type of opportunities or different types of partnerships that will appear as we grow our audience, which again, that can add to the network effects.
Yeah, the competition. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I wanted to add just a little bit to that. And I'm be just a touch controversial in part of this answer. We didn't really talk about our team very much, but for many people on the team, it's actually our third company together. So despite the fact that this is a new company for us, we already know how to work together effectively, and we've already done quite a lot of work in machine learning and building social platforms. And the co-founder, Francisco, and I both have a lot of experience with firearms and firearms training. Francisco is a reserve deputy with the Benton County Police Force. So we're at this sort of somewhat unusual confluence of machine learning and firearms shooting sports. But most importantly, we're also not based out of Silicon Valley, which as a region, I think everyone could probably agree, has largely an unfavorable opinion of firearms, which further frees us from a lot of competition, especially from the big tech vendors. So although there are people, as Adakon mentioned, that are doing firearms technology, there are virtually none, and we just spent the whole week at SHOT Show back in January, so we know everything that's out there. There's no one that's doing the social aspect and the data analysis and sharing that we're doing.
No, that's really interesting. And I mean, and shooting is an Olympic sport. I know one of my friends at MIT was part of I think it's called the ballistics team or something like that with competitive shooting. Like, this is kind of institutionalized in university systems and at the national and international level as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think I'm gonna try to rapid fire sneak in these last two questions, and then let's do our closing remarks. Okay, so how can you control distribution of the direct to consumer app from a global perspective, or do you plan to?
I mean, our focus is mainly on the U.S. market because of some of the stats that I've shared. I mean, by far, it's the largest market as far as gun ownership and the overall figures from a dollars and cents perspective. However, once the app is on the App Store, it can be something people can download. I believe in different locales, and there are in fact other geographies such as Brazil, for example, and various European states where gun ownership is well entrenched, and yet again, based on the my quick math, the amount of guns here in the U.S. Is larger than the next 34 countries in the list. If you go to Wikipedia,
I have to add to this because you may not know this yet, but we were just at the range, and a guy brought a slingshot, and it turns out our app works with a slingshot shooting steel shot as well. So even and that's a serious sport that people do in other countries where firearms are not as accessible, and we also work. So that's there are other potential markets in countries even if it's not firearm related.
Very good point. And this is an interesting one to your kind of addressable market. Is there a version, or do you imagine for professionals, Army, police, et cetera, do you consider this could be required, making this a really sticky tool? This might be mandated potentially.
Yes, absolutely. And we've already had those discussions, especially because and a lot of police, it's kind of strange. I mentioned that Francisco, our CEO, is in the reserve deputy, and there's a people have this thought that police are all gung-ho about firearms, but it's like half the force that really doesn't even care about them. They barely ever train with them. They just meet the qualification to carry it, and that's it. And then there's the other half that are actually interested in it as a sport. And this is an opportunity to take the training they already have, which is something that we're already in discussions with, building drills that exactly match the certification that police departments do, and have it be digitized where you can actually, as a sergeant, you can look at your, the people that you've been training and say, okay, these are the people that really need to be qualified again. I have the exact history of their performance. You may have passed, but you just barely passed. I can see exactly, where you were weak, and you need to go back out there if you're going to be carrying a firearm and train again. And that's something they do not have now.
Yeah, no, that sounds important. So thank you so much for sharing those details. Thank you so much for both of you, Paul and Atakan. Again, speaking with the team at AccuShoot, you can go directly to netcapital.com/companies/AccuShoot, or you can click the link that I added into the chat, or you can go to netcapital.com and search AccuShoot, where you could review their offering page, learn more about the team and the opportunity, and potentially invest. So as I mentioned earlier, I'd love to do this last little bit where we do closing remarks. We're going to go in reverse order this time, so you can stay with us here for a second. AccuShoot. The only question, and it's going to take like 30 seconds each if we could, 30 seconds to a minute. Why is now the perfect time to go to netcapital.com and invest in your company? So why is now the perfect time to go there and invest? So Atakan or Paul, if you want to start us off with a couple of seconds, why is now the perfect time to invest in AccuShoot?
If you invest in AccuShoot today, you will be basically coming at an inflection point where the product's already developed. We're just basically ironing some of the last remaining wrinkles as far as the consumer product goes. So there's going to be potentially immediate traction once this is launched, and you'll be able to benefit from that. And some of the modes that we want to develop going forward are also in play, and we have already strategic advisors making introductions for us with some of the bigger names in the space. But again, it's really a very, very opportune time to be part of this, because this is not a vaporware or just a concept at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Awesome. Thank you for joining us there. And then CureLab, if you can comment in, Robert Devlin, why is now the perfect time to go to netcapital.com and invest in CureLab Veterinary?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of the same thing in some ways, that we're at a very upstream in our process. So it's a perfect time to get in. Once we get through one product through USDA, I'm sure that the other indications, because we're already researching into the other indications that we're going to go, and it will explode. So now's the perfect time to get in ahead of a lot of people, or ahead of potentially a big pharma, and hopefully make a lot of money.
Awesome.
Right? That's what we're all here for, right?
Yep, and save the world. Those two together. And then last but not least, Jack, if you could join us, Jack Klober with Micro MGX. Why is now the perfect time to go to netcapital.com and invest in Micro MGX?
Sure, thank you. Well, first off, everyone is now looking for something green that's good for the environment and that's going to do something natural. We're the only natural herbicide with a new mechanism of action. So that's number one. Number two is we're going to be done in 9 days. So you got 9 days to invest in us at this valuation. So I think, and also I listed so many of the different things that have happened since the valuation occurred. It's a great time to grab it right at the end here. And I think you'll be happy after we make that collaboration deal this spring.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of our attendees for joining in and asking your thoughtful questions. That's what we're here for, to help you become more informed about these opportunities. I want to thank each of our panelists here with Micro MGX, Pure Lab Veterinary, and AccuShoot. It's been a pleasure to work with each of you. And I'm super grateful for you taking the time and sharing your information about your companies with the attendees. As always, this has been recorded, and each of these companies is actively raising capital on Netcapital. So go ahead and go to netcapital.com and check out each of these offerings. And if you're so inclined, go ahead and hit that invest button. I'm adding a link to our YouTube account right now to the chat. You can go to YouTube and search for Netcapital, or I guess you could just use a search engine, search Netcapital YouTube, and you'll be able to find that account. This will be uploaded shortly. And so if you miss anything that you'd like to review, please do that. And if there are any folks that you know would like to learn about this information, but were unable to attend, please go ahead and feel free to share that generously. We want to get as many eyeballs to these opportunities as possible. So the link to the YouTube is in the chat right now. With all that being said, I just want to thank everybody again for taking some time on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon, Pacific time, Wednesday evening. And I just want to thank everybody for joining. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next demo day. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Jack.
Thank you.
Take care, Paul.
Yep. Thank you.